who helped well and truly paint the Tideway light blue in 2023. As the crews are getting attached to their respective stake boats, let's run you through the lineups for the 2024 lightweight women's boat races. For Oxford in dark blue, coxing Eleonora Nani. India Mattox is in the stroke seat. Erica Dutton in 7. Olivia Ramsey at 6. Ruby Mullen at 5. Hazel Bott at 4. Grace Davison in the 3 seat. Grace Glover at 2. And Indigo Buckler in the bow seat. For Cambridge in the light blue, Kate Crowley is coxing. Arden Berlinger is at stroke, Lauren Britton at 7, Margot Riley at 6, Charlie Craig at 5, Georgia Goligly at 4, Charlotte Macy at 3, Claire Cooper at 2, and Madeline Jackson at bow. And we are underway. The 2024 lightweight women's boat race are thundering out of the blocks. And already it is Cambridge University just starting to move their bow balls in front, already up to about a canvas sole of a lead. And at this point, it's a great chance to bring in Rosa Millard. Rosa, at this point, we're thundering away from the stake boat, 6.8k ahead of these crews. It's a big challenge ahead of them.
Yeah, it's a massive challenge ahead, but at this moment in the race, the crews will be very locked into their race plan. They won't be looking, well, the Cambridge girls won't be looking over at Oxford. They'll just be in their zone, knowing what they're doing and really looking to step onto that solid rhythm by the Black Boy.
And Jack, this Cambridge crew, they're returning to the championship course with 2 winners from last year's crew, as well as Blondie Cox, Kate Crowley. It's a new crew, but they seem to be gelling particularly well so far.
Yeah, it was a great start, wasn't it, for the Cambridge lightweights? They really jumped out. I actually think both crews pretty clean off the blocks, and Oxford just took a bit of time to draw up a little closer to them. But the race I thought started fairly Middlesex, but both crews have now moved over towards the line of boats, and pretty flat conditions at the moment as we approach minute 15 gone.
So there we see these crews starting to settle into their race rhythm, step down from that sprinting pace that they had coming out of the blocks. The umpire there, Sarah Winkles, has already got her flag out, warning Cambridge. They're moving out to nearly a length's lead already as we come past the Putney embankment, but they can't cut across in front of Oxford yet. It was Cambridge who won the coin toss before this race. They chose that Middlesex station, the right-hand side of your screen, and it's paying dividends to them already, Rosa.
Yeah, you can already see they're up at about, quarter of a length? And at this point in the race, as I said before, they'll really be looking to step onto that rhythm. As a spectator, you can see they're getting quite close, and what we really want to see as spectators is clashing and contact and lots of competitive spirit between the two crews, but that is the last thing that will be on their minds. They really do not want to clash. They want to be staying apart, getting in their zone, and really just getting ahead quickly.
So there we see 2 minutes in, coming past the Putney embankment, Cambridge University up to nearly 3/4 of a length's lead. That's been a phenomenal start for the Light Blues, as we've said. Coxed by Kate Crowley. She comes from the Blondie crew that won last year in 2023. A phenomenal year for Cambridge, where they won absolutely everything. And we can see there she's now level with the bow of the Oxford crew. Indigo Butler, she sat at bow, the 24-year-old Brit studying a DPhil in medical sciences. She's the only one who can now see that Cambridge crew, who as they start to come towards Fulham Football Club, are just advancing further and further ahead. There we see in the bows for Cambridge, Madeline Jackson, Claire Cooper at 2. Charlotte Macy sat there in the 3 seat. And Rosa, at this stage, we want to see them start to stride out a little bit, bring the rate of striking down just a little bit, just to get into that race rhythm. But it seems like Cambridge are determined to make advantage of that early bend they've got.
It is that classic lightweight thing of they are sprightly, they are quick, they are light. They really do have the ability to get up and down that slide very, very quickly. And I really wouldn't count on Cambridge lowering the rate. It is a classic Cambridge lightweight thing to go off hard, stay hard, and just keep going. They really are relentless. But I would say at this point in the race, we cannot forget the Middlesex have the advantage. So I really wouldn't count Oxford out yet, because they've still got that big Surrey bend in their favour.
We're at this stage now, we can see Cambridge University have now broken clear of their rivals from Oxford, moving up to about half a length of clear water separating the two crews as we head on towards the mile post. Oxford University, driven on by Eleonora Nani, the British-Italian 22-year-old, sat in their coxing seat, and there we can see in the stroke seat facing her, India Mattox, previously from Headington School, from Edinburgh University, and now doing her PhD, postgrad studies in sustainable urban development. And the two of them will just be having a little dialogue, making sure that their crews can hang on in there, because they'll have the massive Hammersmith Bend advantage coming up in the middle of this race. But Jack, at this stage, they need to hang in there.
I think that's just it. It's a pretty simple objective here for Oxford. They've got to make sure that they arrive at the start of that Surrey bend at about Harrods, to make sure that that bend comes into play with them. So just hanging on to, you know, a little bit of contact with them. If they can force the issue a little bit and create some overlap once again, that will make sure that Cambridge are kept on the Middlesex station and Oxford make use of their bend. If you're Cambridge here, you want to make sure that's not the case, and you're pulling right in front and actually negating the influence of the long bend through the middle of this race.
Cambridge now moving up to about nearly 1 length's advantage of Clearwater over their rivals from Oxford University. And Rosa, for Arden Burling and Lauren Britton at stroke and 7, it's a really strong position to be in. I mean, you're Lauren Britton, you're returning from last year's Blue Boat. This is last year's lightweight Blue Boat. This is exactly the position you want to be in 5 minutes into the race.
No, you're absolutely right. I think they'll be absolutely loving the moment and really taking a moment to enjoy what's happening right now. But I know that in the back of their minds, they will not be complacent. They will want to keep extending that lead and making it as clear-cut as possible that they are the stronger crew. However, as I said before, the Surrey bend is still coming, so I really think it would be naive to assume that this race is far from over.
Definitely. This is an almost new crew for Oxford University. They're looking for their first win in 5 years in this lightweight boat race. We can see Harrods Depository starting to loom on the left-hand side. Hammersmith Bridge appearing in the background as well. That's the next big marker for this Oxford crew. That's their next opportunity to kick on. And we're sitting, as I said, about a length back or so for this Oxford crew. But Jack, it looks like they're just hanging on in there and starting to make a bit of a move.
Yeah, that's it. I think for my money, the race is a little bit Middlesex, and they're starting to pick up a little bit of choppy water. It's quite a southerly wind here for these lightweight boat races. And Oxford are doing well. They're keeping it nice and smooth on the steering. And, you know, they've not let it become too much of an issue that they can't see their opponent, and actually keeping it reasonably clean and rhythmic in this section. But, you know, the longer this goes on with Cambridge Clearwater in front, the more the doubts will start to creep in for Oxford.
And what's interesting, Jack, is Kate Crowley, cox of this Cambridge lightweight crew. We saw at the beginning of the race starting to get a few warnings from umpire Sarah Winkles as she was starting to drift over towards that Surrey station. But now that they're actually settled into the race, despite having advantage, choosing to stay over on that Middlesex side.
That's it. I think sometimes as a cox you become reactive to the umpire. You want to make sure that you're keeping them on side, particularly if your crew's in a strong position as Cambridge are here. But perhaps just opening that door a little bit for Oxford to see daylight into the Surrey station, and, you know, with eyes on Hammersmith now through 7 minutes gone, both crews will be just looking at their opponent, at least the coxes will, and keeping eyes on what's going to happen over the next minute or so up to the bridge.
Yeah, this next 90 seconds is absolutely vital for Oxford if they're to hang in this lightweight women's boat race. 2020 was the year this moved to the Tideway, previously over on the Henley Stretch. It's been light blue ever since, and Oxford are desperate to get themselves back into contention. And there we see Hammersmith Bridge. The crew's just a couple of 100 metres away from that key marker. And then at that point, Rosa, the bend will swing in advantage of Oxford, and at that point they've got to step on and make the most of it.
I actually think they're already making a bit of a move, which, to be honest, it's very impressive to see. They came from about a length and a half of Clearwater down to maybe 3/4 of a length. I would say this race is far from over, and those Oxford girls really, really will be digging in now, because they know that this bend, this is where they really need to move if they're going to move.
Definitely a bit of wind in their sails there for Oxford, I think. I'm sure the cox in the coxing seat is really driving them on, talking about the Cambridge puddles that are coming down onto their bow side, and they'll feed off that, you know, under Hammersmith. Big moment in the race here.
We're heading under Hammersmith Bridge, and Oxford University have stepped on. They have closed the gap down to about half a length of Clearwater or so. Cambridge University still leading. Umpire Sarah Winkler, she's got her flag back out again, warning the Cambridge crew they've got to move back over to that Middlesex station. But for India Matix, Erica Dutton, that rhythm that they're wanting to pass down, Rosa, is going to be so important. We can see it. It's powerful, powerful strokes as we move towards St Paul's School.
Absolutely. So in this stage of the race around the Surrey bend, it's about a 3/4 of a length advantage to the Surrey crew, which is Oxford at this stage. And in rowing, we talk a lot about elasticity and maintaining contact with your opponent. So once you have any sort of overlap with your opponent, especially in boat race style races, that is a massive, massive, massive mental advantage. So if Oxford can get just their bow ball over the canvas of the Cambridge stern, that will be a huge mental advantage to them. And Cambridge they might be worrying now because Oxford are moving and they are moving quickly around this bend.
Oxford University, their women under the new stewardship of Alan French took over at the start of the season. James Powell assisting in the coaching of this lightweight women's crew, and they have stopped Cambridge's move. They were so powerful, so dominant in the opening 1,000 metres of this race, along past the Putney stretch towards Fulham Football Club. But at the moment, it is the girls from Oxford University, the dark blues, are moving, trying to make the most of this advantage, this bend advantage they've got as we head towards Chiswick. We can see there Cambridge University hanging on in there, some painful faces. And Rosa, you've got to start to ask, maybe there's questions going through their head, whether or not they've gone too hard too early in this race.
Yes, you can see in their faces they're working hard. You've got Maddie Jackson in the bow seat, very experienced junior rower, lightweight winner last year, and she'll know that these moments happen often in the race. But I spoke to them before this race and I said, how are you feeling? And they said they were used to being down, they were used to racing crews faster than them, having had lots of experience with the open weight blue boat. So although Oxford are moving up, I don't doubt that Cambridge will have a relaxed mentality and know that it's okay to be moved on a bit because they've had lots of practice of that up in Ely.
The next big marker, Chiswick 8, is lurking in the distance, but Oxford University have closed that gap. They were nearly a length more, perhaps, of Clearwater back on Cambridge University, but we're down to just 1 length advantage. Cambridge University are clinging on to that lead they have, but only just, as Oxford are making the most of this Hammersmith bend. But we can see though, Jack, as we're moving to a new section of the course, it's starting to get quite bumpy out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I was out in a launch earlier on in the day, and that wind is certainly formidable for plenty of crews to deal with. I think it's going to be a case of who can handle the conditions here, keep cool heads. As we move down the island, we're only expecting the conditions to get tougher as we come into the second half. We're pretty much past the blue windows, known to all on the Tideway as the halfway marker for the championship course, and into this second half, Cambridge, I think, just starting to stretch out again, staying nice and clean in the rough water, and perhaps finding a bit of confidence. Last section of the bend, really once Oxford have come onto the island, there's only perhaps another couple of more seats they'll get out of their bend, and then the psychological boost comes back into the favour of the Middlesex crew.
You can see there at the moment, Cambridge University have just started to find another gear. It was nearly a length that Oxford had managed to close the advantage back down to, but Cambridge, the light blues, are just starting to stretch back out. That gap between the two crews has grown, and that stern pair, Arden Berlinger, Lauren Britton, the returner from last year's winning crew, are just starting to ease out. But actually, as I say that, Oxford University are not fading. And actually, Rosa, we've got contact. We've finally got contact again. It's the first time since Putney that Oxford University have really said they're in contention in this boat race.
Yeah, it's an impressive move from them. Cambridge did have a big lead up by Harrods, but Oxford have really fought back and have got that contact that we were talking about earlier. And for Indigo Butler in the bow seat, that will be a huge thing. She'll look over to her left and say, oh, we're moving. And when you hear that we're moving, it is a huge motivator for the rest of the crew. So yeah, this is only good things for Oxford right now, so I wonder how Cambridge are going to respond.
Two contrasting styles at the moment. Cambridge University, higher rate of striking, trying to get as many strokes in as possible. Perhaps a little bit rushed. Oxford just taking a bit more time heading up and down the slide. Long, powerful strokes from this Oxford to compare and contrast the two styles. But it seems at the moment Oxford University, there we have it, starting to move their bows up the Cambridge boat. That bow nearly in touch with Kate Crowley, Cox of the Cambridge crew. And momentum's a massive thing in sport, a massive thing in this boat race. And at the moment, all momentum is with Oxford University, who their bow will starting to move back up towards their stroke of that Cambridge crew.
They have to make this count now, though, Fergus. I think absolutely coming past the end of the island. A minute later, you've got, as I say, the final section of their bend. They know this has to be their moment if they want to put the bow ball not just alongside the Cox, but actually up alongside the Cambridge bow ball and make it a race that is nip and tuck then as we approach the final section, which is, of course, that long Middlesex bend. So Oxford really need to know that it's make or break time, and they'll want one message going from the stroke up to the bow seat. Indigo Buckler, and to keep that rhythm going as we come past Chiswick Steps and towards Chiswick Pier.
Many of these rowers from the Oxford and from the Cambridge crew as well learnt to row at their respective universities. Perhaps their first taste now of of the highest level of racing some of them might race, but they are in the thick of it at the moment. Cambridge University hanging on for dear life ahead of the Dark Blues from Oxford. We can see there Maddie Jackson, Claire Cooper, Charlotte Macy, Georgia Goligly and Charlotte Craig. But there we see as well the bows of the Oxford crew starting to look very ominous for that Cambridge crew. Oxford have hauled themselves back into contention and they're looking patient. They're still looking relaxed. And at the moment, Rosa, it looks like they've got a lot of faith in their rhythm that has been working so well for them over the past couple of minutes or so.
Yeah, they're looking really good. And what I was thinking is that Wallingford has been red flag most of the year. So I imagine that the Cambridge crew will have been out more than the Oxford crew. So I think that the way that the Oxford crew have rode in this rough water is really, really impressive given now. I mean, you can see in the video that their blades are going high above hitting the water, but that's what happens in the wavy conditions, and they're handling it really well considering how much their river has been on red flag.
It's now the turn of Oxford to get warned by Sarah Winklis, and they're now down to half a length. Oxford have closed the gap to half a length on this Cambridge crew. This has been a phenomenal move. They were right out the back, nearly out of contention by the time they got to Hammersmith Bridge. But what a move this has been, a well orchestrated past 3 or 4 minutes for the girls from Oxford University. And at the moment, that bend advantage is starting to run out. We're coming to the end of it. We're sat at about half a length. But Jack, the focus is going to start to turn towards the Cambridge crew, who will have that final bend as we come under Barnes Bridge.
Yeah, really lumpy now. All about staying calm in these conditions. You know, the word in my blue boat that we constantly use until we were sick of it was just being unfazed. And I'm sure both boats will have, practiced race pace rowing in tricky water and trying to build that confidence through the season is such a big part of it. And really where these Oxbridge crews perhaps separate themselves from other domestic crews is their familiarity with rough water rowing.
There we see coming past Chiswick Pier, Oxford still moving their bow ball up that Cambridge crew, still holding about half a length or so, maybe slightly less as we come up to the pier. The next marker will be the big bandstand. That Cambridge crew there, that bow four, are in a world of pain at the moment. Charlotte Craig just coming into shot as well. But they'll know, Rosa, that bend is coming up. They've got about 1,000 metres or so until they hit Barnes Bridge, and at that point, it's a really vital final advantage they'll have.
Yeah, so whilst Oxford have made an epic move and have come up a lot, we mustn't forget that Surrey bend gave them 3/4 of a length, and Cambridge's advantage is only just coming to them. And the rowers know that. They know that at each point in the race, they know who's got the advantage. And Cambridge, in the back of their minds, Kate Crowley will know that their advantage is coming, and she is fierce. She will let them know that their time is still to come, and I think they could pull it back and extend that lead again.
I think worth reminding ourselves that it was Cambridge who won the toss and chose that Middlesex station. And I think a lot of the time people expect the Middlesex crew to take advantage of their early bend at Fulham, and absolutely that was the case. But now it comes back into play in an even bigger way. Perhaps 2/3 of a length that Barnes bend that's coming up will give them. And it's about playing the long game on Middlesex. And I think Cambridge might just get away with that long game right now.
So as we see, we're coming up past the bandstand in the not too distant future. The crews, though, they're well off record pace today. We've had a lot of rain in the Thames Valley recently that's been flooding down the tideway. There's not been many races taking place, but at the moment the one that matters is this one. It's the lightweight women's boat race. The girls from Oxford University are on screen. You can see there Ruby Mullen sat at 5, coached by Martha Birtles, who is in the 2021 Oxford University Blue Boat. And we see there on screen, India Matrix, the winner at the National Schools Regatta at Henley Women's Regatta, raced at Henley Royal, doing all she can to keep her crew in contention. But that move that Oxford have, that epic move, that brave move in the middle part of this course, perhaps that was all they had. As we can see, Cambridge University, it was at half a length, and they're moving back out to nearly a length's advantage over the crew from Oxford University. You can see Barnes Bridge starting to lurk in the distance. That's the next one. The next big marker for these two crews, and Cambridge University, well, they've broken clear again, Rosa.
Yeah, I mean, that Cambridge crew, they've got a lot of experience. As I said, Manny Jackson, Lauren Britton, Kate Crowley, all done the race before in some form. And let's not forget that they're coached by Bronya Sykes, who is 3-time Blue Boat rower, won twice, setting the course record in 2022. She is very, very, very experienced, and she will have taught them so much tenacity. And you can see that right now in the way they're extending their lead again. Bronya will be in the launch looking at them, just knowing that they're executing the race plan the way she told them.
And there we see in the shadows of Barnes Bridge, the women of Cambridge University have made the move that could well win them this lightweight women's boat race. They're going for their 6th win in a row, and look at that. In the past 30-40 seconds, the advantage this crew has been able to open up over Oxford University is gigantic. We're up to nearly 2 lengths of clear water, and there we see Barnes Bridge, and at this point it's all looking like it's going to be Cambridge all the way to the finish line.
Yeah, I think also you can see with this wind, I must say this looks an awful lot like Ely does from November to February. It is very windy up there, and that's what Cambridge will be used to, and maybe you can see that reflected in this race now. Cambridge are used to those conditions. They're used to a relentless wind for miles and miles and miles, and perhaps that's what's given them the edge in this last minute or two.
I think Eleonora in the Oxford coxing seat now has to make a decision about where she positions this boat. Still a little bit of lump on the water, certainly taking a wider line here, perhaps to avoid some of those Cambridge puddles, but certainly at this point coming under the bridge, you have to keep your crew engaged and on mission, even sitting what I would say is 2 3/4 lengths down here for Oxford.
Under her Barnes Bridge, it is advantage Cambridge, picking up very much from where they left off last year. They have the lead, they have the advantage as we head under that last big marker. We've got about 1,500 metres or so until we get to the finish line. They've raced for just over 5k, and we're heading 6.8k this championship course. But as we head under Barnes Bridge, Oxford are doing all they possibly can to keep themselves in contention, but Cambridge starting to really stride out now. That gap advantage, as we said, was previously half a length, and just look at what Cambridge have been able to do. Opened up nearly 4, nearly 5 lengths advantage over Oxford in the past couple of minutes. Cambridge, they've had a bumpy ride leading into this boat race with some of their fixtures, lost both their pieces to Oxford Brookes University. However, up against Thames Rowing Club's D crew, who finished 14th at the women's head of the river, they managed to beat that Thames crew each time they raced them. As we've said, we're not on for a record pace this year. We've had plenty of rain recently, but Cambridge University looking set to extend that winning margin to 6 wins over their rivals from Oxford.
So you were just talking about the Cambridge season. I know that they've had, whilst their fixture success or their fixture results may not have always been what they wanted, I know that within themselves they've had a very, very thorough selection phase, and their seat race margins were very small, so they've done it again and again and again. So coaches Bronya, under the watchful eye of Paddy, will know that this is the fastest crew possible on the day, and I'm sure they have every faith, and they've just shown their tenacity. Look at them now, absolutely ripping on it, ready for that last 2 minutes. They know the finish is close. They'll be getting ready to wind for that finish, knowing that the finish line is almost in sight.
Cambridge University looking set for that 6th win in a row in this lightweight women's boat race. But for Oxford, it's perhaps a bright future ahead of them. They're under new stewardship. Alan French has taken over the whole programme. We've had a big merger at Oxford as well. The men's, the women's lightweights have all come together under one club. And Alan French had a huge amount of success at the likes of Oxford Brookes University. So we're really excited to see what he can bring to this programme, both the lightweights, the reserves and the open weights as well. And it could be a bright future ahead for everyone involved at Oxford University. But today is looking like it will be the day for the lightweights, a day for Cambridge University. 6 in a row they're going for. And for the likes of Lauren Britton and Maddie Jackson, both winners from last year, that feeling of euphoria is about to be repeated. And what a shot that is. We've got Barnes in the background. Cambridge University, Jack, at this point they can't perhaps enjoy it, but it's the best possible position to be in, knowing that you're just a few minutes away from winning a boat race.
Absolutely, and when you've put together a season where the one aim has been this kind of uniform purpose of racing the boat race at the end of it, you've got to enjoy being there at race pace with your crew on that final bend, knowing that victory is almost in reach and enjoying every success.
So just a minute or two left until we get to the finish post. Just before Chiswick Bridge, a word for Oxford University. Their lightweight women's crew this year, coxed by Eleanor Nani, India Mattox at stroke, Erica Dutton at 7, Olivia Ramsey at 6, Ruby Mullen at 5, Hazel Bott sat at 4, Grace Davidson in the 3 seat, and your bow pair of Grace Glover and Indigo Butler. But there we see Cambridge University, the set to be victorious light blue crew, coxed by Kate Crowley, Arden Berlinger at stroke, Lauren Britton, the returning winner from last year, at 7, Margot Riley at 6, Charlie Craig at 5, Georgia Goligley, the 21-year-old Australian Aussie, at 4, Charlotte Macy at 3, and your bow pair of Claire Cooper at 2, and Maddie Jackson at bow.
I would say it's actually quite impressive as well that even in this last stage of the race, they look tidy, they look good. So they're a very well trained crew. They've executed the race plan the way they wanted, and look, that is the best feeling. That is truly epic.
So there we see past the finishing line. It is a victory for the Light Blues, a victory for Cambridge University in the lightweight women's blue boat. It will be Oxford who take second place, last place in this boat race, and back to the drawing board for them. Scenes of euphoria, ecstatic scenes between the stern pair, Arden Berlinger embracing Lauren Britton there as the crews drift under Chiswick Bridge. But Jack, I think there's got to give a word to Cambridge, particularly in the middle part of that race, when Oxford were marching back into contention. They kept their cool, kept their calm, and then really stuck the knife in towards Barnes Bridge.
Yeah, as I said, definitely a psychological race through the middle. I think kudos to both crews for a really gutsy middle section of the race in pretty tough conditions, and I think a thoroughly entertaining watch through that middle portion. So yeah, huge congrats to both crews, and ultimately to Cambridge, who will be enjoying these moments.
So Cambridge University pick up from where they left off last year, winning the lightweight women's boat race. It's now 6 in a row. It's back to the drawing board for Oxford University to see what they can do in next year's race. But for Cambridge University, they'll be looking to see if that momentum can carry forward to the men's race, but also to the reserve races and the boat races themselves, the Gemini boat races, come tomorrow's racing.
Yeah, you can see it's a huge moment for them. And you saw in the shot previously the binary nature of the boat race. You saw an image of Oxford looking very, very deflated in the forefront and Cambridge in the background, absolutely ecstatic. This race is brutal.
Yeah, tough moments there for the Oxford women. I think you have to come together after a loss and really be there for your team. A little chat with the umpire perhaps.
So we hope you've enjoyed the coverage of the 2024 lightweight women's boat race between Oxford University and Cambridge University. The victorious Cambridge University crew there on screen. They'll head over to the bank. They'll be embraced by their club mates, their teammates, and their celebrations can pick up from where they left off last year.